you've talked about, that if China attacks Taiwan, that it will also open the door for Beijing to take the Senkaku Islands, also known as Daoyutai, which China claims as part of Taiwan, which it also claims and says that Taiwan has been part of China, quote, for since ancient times. How would you characterize Taiwan's fate then with that of Japan's? Is it, as Shinzo Abe has said, an attack on Taiwan is an attack on Japan?
I think in this argument there are so many the ingredients into one pot. For example, strategic importance of Taiwan and Senkaku is the same. No, okay. Any military conflict happens in Taiwan is Japan's issue. That's correct. But it's a kind of very general, comprehensive argument. And some may say China would only attack Taiwan and they would not take Japanese Western Island. Yes, that is option. But if that happens under the treaty, U.S. is free to use those Western Islands to make the side attack against Chinese invasion force. So Beijing, I don't think they would not be happy to take that the option. Right. So, but anyway, the responsibility of the government is to prepare for the worst. So that means that Beijing, and also it's natural, or kind of the common sense, especially for the military planners, that when China make any military maneuvers over Taiwan, of course the seizure of the Western Island of Japan is part of the Taiwan operations.
And you've warned before, since essentially, well, at least in your time as commander of the self-defense fleet, you've warned that Japan isn't prepared for a Taiwan crisis, well before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So I do want to ask you what your view is about that risk. How more likely is China to make that attack, given that Russia's invasion of Ukraine seems to be, yielding it possible territory if Trump comes in, forces Ukraine to the negotiating table?
There are so many unknowns, but Taiwan is very different, of course, China says that the Taiwan is the kind of the God-given territory of the China, but of course, America and Japan understand China's position, but we do not agree with the Chinese position. Say if any military maneuver that is against Chinese Taiwanese people's, the intent. If the Taiwanese people want the freedom, free society, or more autonomous, the political posture, there are common value. There is common value of the democracy and free society. So the response with the U.S. will be fairly different from the Ukraine.
Can I ask you about Trump's influence? So those close to the U.S., next U.S. president, previously had spoken about the need for Japan to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP. Of course, now Japan is in the middle of doubling its current spending from 1% to 2%. Now, given you have criticized the process of that doubling of the defense spending, not the increase itself, but the process, can I get your thoughts on Japan being forcibly asked to increase to 5%? What sort of pressures would that put on Japan?
Yeah, the security planning and the alliances, the operational side, we take very closely the alliance nature into account, but also force build-up or defense spending, including the money goes for the U.S., that's our matter. So when we think it's necessary, we will increase. And single fact is, the before 2015 Abe period, Japanese government people did not want to pay more than 1%. But now, say, Shinzo Abe. 2012, I think Shinzo Abe took his, the second term office. The r- rise of China really changed the situation, so he decided. And then Kishida also decided to increase the budget to currently, I think, 1.7%. And that's not, forced by US.
And that was from Japan itself
Yeah,
through the
we
three
think it's necessary.
strategies. Yeah.
Okay, and Japanese people support it. And so in the future, and Kishida said 2%, that about the same level of the NATO. But when we really think it's necessary and Chinese military expansion is too rapid, and we think it's more, maybe we will go to 3%. Oh, of course, no one in the government mentioned that, but this is how it works. And in order to do so, there are so many coordinations. Okay, what do you need? And especially, the Taiwan operations. Where will be the operation base for Taiwan for the U.S. forces? Japan. One precedent or example is the 1990 Saddam Hussein's Kuwait invasion. What made it that possible? Saudi Arabia. 2,000 fighters, 2,000 transport and air refueling tankers, and the several hundreds of and then mainly the NATO stationed U.S. forces first came to the Saudi Arabia, and they prepare and they doing exercise, and also they piled up the fuel and ammunition, and then against Saddam Hussein's invasion force. And in case of Taiwan, that's U.S. is the other side of the Pacific, and Hawaii is still too far, and Guam is too small. Who'd help the U.S. forces operations? Okay, in case of real Taiwan contingency, so U.S. would send about the same size of the 1990, the Kuwait invasion. So huge forces would come. Who'd support that? What nation? Capable nation? Only Japan. So Japan has much larger responsibility, and that's the point, Mr. Trump. Unfortunately, I don't think he understands. So the Japanese leadership, especially Ishida, Prime Minister Ishida, or Foreign Minister and Defense Ministry, they made the best effort to convince. I don't know if Mr. Trump really listened to our, the stories, but we need to make it happen. Okay, if Japan's capability to support U.S. forces would lose. Magnificent, robust U.S. forces, lack of the operational support, including the logistic, U.S. forces would fail. That's the last thing we want. So the Japan has a lot to do, but so Mr. Trump may say many things, but again, especially in the policy side, politicians, political leaders, especially a person like Trump, may say many hard things by voice, but his real policy would be a little, I would say, neutralized. And that's what happened exactly in the 4 years period of the 17 to 21. Was any country died? No. Under the Trump administration, yes, a lot of economic problems, but they barely managed. But this time we have to be much more serious. But key is U.S.-Japan communication, focusing on the Taiwan situation. Okay, so that would be the key. And please, we should not make Mr. Xi Jinping happy.